Previously on the Trogly's Guitar Show. Will you take a gift card as partial payment? Ah man, I guess I can look through it and see what Guitar Center has. That's alright, maybe? Nah, not that one. Ooh, here might be our winner. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, the Guitar Center purchase is here. Let's see what it's like buying from Guitar Center in the year 2023. Because I've had good luck with Guitar Center, I've had bad luck with Guitar Center, but at the end of the day, they've got a really good return policy, so typically speaking, you're never stuck with it if you don't like what ended up showing up. Well, first off, I'd say the packing job was really good. They had lined the sides of the box with additional boxes, and they used a real Gibson box here, so I was very impressed with the pack job on that. However, I'm instantly disappointed they didn't disclose it was an aftermarket case. I feel like that's easy enough they could do. Instead of this product comes with a case, it could be the original case or not, or maybe that is what that means, and that's just something I have to learn. But today we are going to learn all about the second generation of Nighthawks. So let's just hope this thing is beautiful. Yeah, I would say it's got a nice top to it. So this is what is known as the Nighthawk standard. So the Nighthawk in general was first introduced around 1993 and the initial run lasted until 1998. They didn't exactly look like these though. They look like this. You can find 2 pickup and 3 pickup variations. There were different levels of ornateness as far as the inlays go. If you want to check one of the original runs out, I documented the custom version in this episode. However, after about 5 or 6 years, they were discontinued, but Gibson brought them back for a second run from 2009 through 2014. The first one being in 2009, it had a P90 pickup in the neck. And then the second iteration was this one that we're going to learn about today. And then there were just a few other ones. So it wasn't quite as standard and steady production as the first generation of Nighthawks. But even yet today, you can find some Epiphone versions of these guitars. So let's check this out condition-wise. Did they sell me a dud? So far, it's looking pretty good. You just got a couple of nicks and dings. So I'd definitely say that matches their description as far as all that goes. So far, the only thing I'm really upset about is the whole case thing. But on to the history. Looking at the first generation of Nighthawks, what made them so fascinating was the mini humbucker in the neck, the middle pickup, and then a slanted bridge pickup. But this new standard series kind of changed that formula. This looks a little bit more traditional because you actually just have 2 regular humbucker pickups, none of them are slanted, and then you've got your single coil in the middle. This is kind of like a reissue of a very rare, only 100 made 1994 brown version, where it's even hard to even find photos of that one online. But they made these things incredibly beautiful with very nice quilty maple caps to them. And they had some pretty tasty finishes that were inspired by cities. We're talking St. Louis sauce, Chicago blue, and Memphis mojo. Now this one, Vintage Sunburst, actually came a year after those guys, so it doesn't have a fancy city name to go with it, but it is a beautiful guitar nonetheless. Just a slightly less iconic finish. But besides beautiful finishes and quilty tops, they also changed one other spec about these guys. We have a poplar body on the back, and they're also chambered out, despite not having like an F-hole to make it look like one of the blueshawks. So it's kind of like they were blending those 2 guitars together in a roundabout way, which is kind of cool. I'm really liking this fuzzy looking rosewood fretboard on this one. But to learn a little bit more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs to see what else might make it special. But real quick before we tear it apart, unfortunately, straight out of the box, there's a playability issue. After I strung it back up, our high E string is not ringing perfectly. The ring's fine once you press it down. So that means we've got an issue either with the nut or the neck needs adjusted. And not that you'll be able to see it on camera. It does look like it has a slight up bow, so we might be able to correct that. All right, I've got some good news. It was just because the strings were slackened during shipment, and once I put the correct relief in the neck, that buzzing went away. So I am going to blame that on the shipping process, not necessarily on Guitar Center. But let's take a look at the interesting specs of this beast, starting with our pickups. The neck is a Burstbucker 1, and the bridge is complemented with a Burstbucker 2. Well, let's check out the one everybody wants to know about, this blade style. So the Gibson marketing called this a ceramic 8 blade style pickup. It almost looks like a stacked single coil to me, so I'm curious if that'll have any hum or not. The bottom of it just looks like this. You've got the brass base plate and not too much more markings outside of that. As far as the neck pickup cavity, it looks like this. You get to see the poplar body right here. But take a special look at our cross section here. I wouldn't have been surprised had these just been thin veneer tops because they're really nice. But no, you can see it's a full cap right here. It's about a 1/4 inch thick. And then you can see the rest of the poplar body right here. I'm not really sure how they would chamber this guitar. I would assume there's just like a matching chamber over here, similar to what they did over here for the control layout, just to make it a little bit lighter in weight. But I did find a funny goof up in the middle position. There's 2 different screw holes. Somebody must have messed up while installing that at the factory or when somebody was verifying the pickups. It wasn't me, because I haven't put them back in yet. And I also noticed like this weird sticker or something that was placed right here. Whether that came from the factory or not, I'm not entirely sure, but it definitely makes sense that somebody would put that there so the pickup doesn't wiggle. And then lastly, our bridge pickup cavity looks like this. It reads DSN2. And here's an even better spot to see the different woods layered up. And the pickup rings themselves, they're not your usual big plastic ones, they're just thin plates. It's very similar to what they use as the toppers on like the Lzzy Hale signature model, except for it's just the whole ring this time because it's a flat top instead of a carved top. Now let's learn about the pickups. The bridge is 7.94 k ohms within the circuit, then 7.42 k ohms in the neck, and the blade style pickup is 3.89 k ohms. Now this is indeed a 5-way toggle switch, so I would assume it's a blending of these two at 3.3 and then blending these two at 3.21. But that's not all this crazy thing can do. You also have push-pull pots on both of them. So that'll take your neck from the full 7.42 k ohm reading all the way half it down to 3.85. So they're basically just running one of the single coils. And that's exactly what this one does too, just for the bridge. So ah, man, this thing's just gonna get complicated. I think I'm just gonna sit down with you guys and just talk through it, because that's the true reason I don't like to demo Nighthawks, is there's just so many tonal opportunities. It's hard for me to show you every single one in a musical context way. But to count it out, you've got neck, neck split, neck middle, neck split middle, middle, middle bridge split, bridge, bridge split. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't just make this one coil splitting both of those, and then this one removes the middle pickup out of the circuit and like rewires it so the middle position would then give you your traditional middle tones. I'm sure you maybe could rewire it to be that way if you're so desired. But now let's take a look at this bridge. So it's secured to the guitar using 4 screws on the outside. And if you're wondering what that hole's about, that's how they put the ground wire in there. But it's basically just like a regular Telecaster style bridge, but instead of being a rectangular shape, it's more of a trapezoid, kind of like the trapezoid inlays you find on Les Paul standards, because that is all one piece right there. It's just bent over. Then you have your Stratocaster style saddles for intonation. This thing was actually quite clean straight from Guitar Center, but I think it more so comes down to this one wasn't played all that much. I mean, there's still a couple of nicks and dings as we were talking about, and the whole reason why I actually decided to clean this guitar again is there were some pretty heavy picking scratches right here, which thankfully, if you got the right stuff, normally those can mainly come out. So we're basically just down to polishing swirls and scratches on this one, outside of a couple of nicks and dings. So I'm happy condition-wise, but I'm ecstatic over this fretboard. I had to look through the spec sheet again just to make sure this is actually really rosewood, because this has figuring within it. Like I was calling it fuzzy earlier, because sometimes you just have like fuzzy looking fretboards, but this one legitimately has flame figuring lines within it. I mean, you can see it all up and down this thing. That's very cool. You don't see that very often in rosewood. So that's why I was trying to make sure it wasn't like a baked maple or a granadillo fretboard, because they did like to play with alternate woods in this era. And I have seen this before on like the Smartwood series, but according to the spec sheet, these guys are rosewood. But these are freaky Gibsons. They are a true 25.5-inch scale length, just like a Fender. So in case this is the first time you've seen a Nighthawk, this is kind of Gibson's 90s attempt to take some market share from Fender and other similar brands. They made the guitar a little bit thinner and lighter. They made it a little bit less wide as compared to a Les Paul. They changed up your scale length. Then you'll notice this actually has a Florentine cutaway right here, and just put some hardware very similar to a Fender on here. And then these things even have maple necks. I really wish they just would have left the back finish on this one just be natural, because a poplar body with a maple neck with this kind of finish on the front would have been gorgeous. But that's just the original ones. The second run is basically them reissuing a cult classic for some people. Honestly, there's not a lot of famous guys who dedicatedly use this. I mean, sure, Nancy Wilson has a signature model that's a Gibson, as well as the current day Epiphones. She's probably the most notable user. And yeah, B.B. King has a Little Lucille model in the blueshawk range. But as far as a guy who just mains a Nighthawk or a blueshawk, I really couldn't tell you. but we still just have 22 frets. This one has a rather skinny nut with the 1.64 inches. That increases to a pretty standard 2.06. First fret neck depth, 0.89. And yeah, that stays skinny, 0.92 by the 12th. Here it is at the first fret and the 12th fret on the contour gauge. Definitely a 60s slim tapered neck, but it's still rounded at the same time. So if you like round and thin necks, I think you would enjoy this. And the headstocks are pretty nice on this. You just have your regular Gibson mother of pearl logo with a matching crown, kind of like an SG. I was kind of shocked. All these tuners were really loose, like almost just ready to fall off, so I had to tighten those up. Here you can see our truss rod and the maple neck. Our truss rod cover is blank on these. Condition-wise, we've got a couple of dings right here, probably from where it's hanging on a hanger. I didn't see any over on this side though. Moving on to the back, being all black, we can't really see too much, but if you get it in the light just right, you see those vertical lines running up and down? That's the poplar wood grain showing through, so no, that's not finish checking, even though it kind of looks like it. Even up here on the headstock, you can see some of that coming through for the maple wood grain. I wanted to take some time to look at the side profile shot because generally you only ever see the fronts of these things, so you don't see what actually makes them special. So the body, it's kind of like an access heel cut, but not exactly. You see how it kind of swoops in a little bit just to get out of your way as you're playing? We don't have any like super comfort carve here, but everything is nice and rounded over. It's just the body, full thickness, would probably stick out another 1/4 inch or so. So it's just a nice little attention to detail on these models. On top of that, you've got your comfort cut over here. That just makes it a little bit more slender and fits to your body better. But now, electronics-wise, this is kind of a rat's nest. They've got a whole bunch of stuff going on in a very small route. It's the same kind of a backplate that an Explorer uses. And unfortunately, we do not see any of the chambering. Outside of reading spec sheets, I'm not sure anybody would even remember that they are chambered, but I'm sure it's kind of a similar chamber to this as is over there. Got your output jack on the side, strap buttons in our regular locations over here. You do have the string ferrules that go through the back just like a Telecaster. If you're curious why that looks so strange, it's because we've got Fender bullet strings on this thing. Those are so cool. If you've never seen them, they look like this. They just have brass bullets on the back for supposedly better sustain. And moving up the back of the neck, I did end up finding a couple of scratches over here. Not too big of a deal. Then we do have some lacquer shrinking around the nut. That's pretty common. You can see that in a few areas along the binding on this one as well. It's mainly prevalent on the side you see. Thankfully, there isn't a huge ridge that you feel or anything. That's just in a few areas on this one. In the back of our headstock, we can see our Gibson Clusen Deluxe tuners, all done up in gold. And then this one dates to 2012, the 52nd day of the year. Initial batch 320th guitar stamped that particular day. So this is an example of one of those guitars that even though this is mainly seen as a 2010 to a 2011 model, there are always runoffs of a couple of months. So it's always hard to say for sure, oh yeah, it was only made these many years. All said and done, this one weighs 7 pounds, 3.3 ounces. Let's go ahead and hear some of these tones. All right, let's go ahead and get into this, starting with our neck pickup. Okay, so it's not quite as bright sounding as the vintage one that we had earlier. There's actually a lot of very usable tones that are still very Gibson-esque. I mean, that neck pickup. It's got a nice bright punch to it, but very clear and articulate. Okay. But the bridge pickup? Okay, that's still pretty fairly familiar territory. But the truly new pickup here is that middle position. It's very refreshing and new for a Gibson. And of course you got those in-betweens. So really, blending that with these two pickups just gives you something different. But if the in-between settings aren't bright enough for you, that's when you can coil split each of those. So here's that neck again. I like that. Glassy. It's kind of reminding me of a Firebird. Overall, I'd say I like this one a bit better than my first one I tried. Or it's just because I kind of knew what to expect this time. So let's try some distortion. You guys, but I'm really digging that middle pickup on this. Now that we know all about this Gibson Nighthawk standard, what are my final thoughts? Do I regret this purchase? No, not really. I mean, I just thought, yeah, it'd be a cool piece to document, but this ended up being way more beautiful in person than I could have ever imagined from their stock photos. But I didn't have too much to go off of there. Pretty much the only thing I feel bad about this purchase is the whole case situation, that it probably could have easily been disclosed that it wasn't the original one. But this top came to life in person, and I would have never have known to have had a figured fretboard on this one, so that's a pretty cool example. But this guitar, in general, I liked it way better than my first Nighthawk. Because I just remember that one being really bright, but that was the version that had the mini humbucker and the slanted bridge. I mean, it was made to be bright. This one was a little bit more to my tastes, but still very clear and attacking. So it's Nighthawk, but a little bit different. For me personally, I think I'd rather have one of the city-named finished ones, but this is a nice guitar in and of itself. So, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, why don't you check out the original Nighthawk? We've been talking about it all episode long. You might as well see what it's all about.